Hello and welcome to this talk on basically how to start a career in cybersecurity with ethical hacking. My name's Jeremy Green, cybersecurity manager for British Telecom, and had quite a long career, as I'll come on to as we sort of move through the slides. Important part is, and funny enough, it's something we've actually recently done within BT, is mapping our jobs across to the NICE framework, and we've used many of the EC Council qualifications to map them across, so that we can best fit and best equip our, if you like, our analysts and developers and other areas of the business with the skills, not only the theory skills, but the practical skills, because that was one of the key reasons we wanted to map and have different certifications, and certainly why we brought CH on board, so that people could have our hands-on skills by making good use of the iLabs, as well as the theory type skills as well, and the knowledge to be able to undertake their jobs. So the jobs available after transition to cybersecurity, as you can see there, we've got some statistics. These are statistics generated by EC Council. And you can see that the numbers of jobs is still quite tremendously available. And even within COVID, I certainly have seen within LinkedIn and talking to peers that the jobs market is certainly emerging, and there is more and more cybersecurity jobs out there, and there's still a lot out there. Certainly within the telecoms world, all of the big players have seen an upsurge of people using the telecoms systems, of course, because of people using things like Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting, Zoom, WebEx, and obviously all the other platforms that have been in play, you know, for people to watch streaming of video and music and everything else. So that obviously needs to be effectively looked after, and people need to be protected within their security side. So there has been a growth in that part as demand has risen. So if you're looking about some of the roles, the sort of the more junior roles that you might look at, if you think about sort of 0 to 4 years of work experience, again, want to move on to sort of drilling down further into the actual elements of the roles, and specifically analysts, which is what I'm going to do. You'll sort of see how the analyst role fits into those different areas as well. Move on to 4 to 8, as you can see, we're sort of moving into slightly more senior roles. None of these are hard and fast roles, but these are what I call recommended pathways and how people should see themselves, because very much within cybersecurity, you can elevate very, very quickly, but sometimes if you elevate too quickly, without all that foundational knowledge and that good grounding, you can start to feel that you're either hitting a ceiling or you're just struggling. And it is good to take what I call a nice paced step through your career. Don't just think, oh, I'm just going to jump from here to there. That actually sometimes can be an inhibitor, for no other reason than you jump so fast that you haven't had a chance to assimilate and really get good and soak up the knowledge at these different levels. And of course, what you might then be looking is moving, obviously, you know, right to the top of the tree, really looking into sort of the real technical roles as well as you move up. Some people don't want to move up, some people don't want to move into management, some people want to go into more technical areas, maybe it's into malware analysis, open source, and others want to go more into risk management or management per se, as in managing of a team and things like that, when we sort of get to this level of experience. And again, that's the great thing about cybersecurity. You might focus on one area in the early part of your career, but you might then decide to transition across, and skills are completely transferable. You never feel with cybersecurity that you're ever locked in, because there's always a way to learn new things or move diagonally, sideways, or upwards, depending on what you want to do and the areas of interest you've had. In terms of the skills that we're looking at, I mean, the base level skills are always going to be around networking, without a doubt. Networking is the foundation to cybersecurity. I've always said, and I'll always say that what is cybersecurity but networking with bells on it. And although it's said in jest, it's basically that cybersecurity is around, a lot of it is around securing networks. Yes, we've got physical security, but ultimately is physical security, therefore, to secure the network. So again, it's all of these basic things that you learn and understand are so important. And it doesn't matter whether you're following a certification track, whether you're going through education, or you're learning on the job. Getting the basics right first will help build up a nice solid wall of foundation. It's, again, if you try to build a wall with poor foundations, it's going to fall over, it's going to start to bow, and it's not going to stand the test of time. But if you give strong, firm foundations, you'll find that those can build upon it. And a lot of the courses and certifications and jobs often overlap. So skills that you've learned in one will then move on to the next and be transferable. And all you're ever doing is then building and tweaking them and expanding them out. So as we go to sort of 4 to 8 years, again, we're looking into sort of more in depth, so moving away from networking per se, but more into looking into what I call the analyst type world, more in-depth analyst, understanding some of the frameworks out there. We've got some at the bottom, such as the health insurance and portability, SOX, Barnes-Oxley. There's other things like PCI DSS, and learning a little bit more about cybersecurity management and risk management and things like that comes in. Communication skills, big part of cybersecurity, because of course, it doesn't matter what the role is, you may have to be able to talk to other people, whether it's external customer, internal customer. Explaining something that's very, very complex to someone who doesn't understand is also a skill. We use lots and lots of acronyms within cybersecurity. That doesn't always benefit everybody. You might have to give a presentation to a board of directors, and that board of directors has very little technical knowledge. So how are you going to explain to them something highly technical and use all these acronyms? The chances are it's not going to get there. You're going to have to find some way of communicating and explaining it. Hence, good communication skills being a really an important factor that comes across many, many roles within cybersecurity. Because you are a specialist, you may well become a subject matter specialist on a system or a specific area that people come to you to ask for advice and knowledge on, and that's all part of it, being able to share that knowledge and make other people understand the why and the rationale and why this piece of security is important. As we get towards the 8 to 12 years of work experience, again, this is where we're sort of really coming to the upper tier. Maybe it's into senior management, but basically you more and more are overseeing the wider picture often of cybersecurity. You might be managing a team. You may even have gone into a specialist area and helping that specialist area. For example, open source. You might have an open source team that you're looking after. You might have moved into a pen testing team, and again be looking after pen testers. You'll be the senior pen tester supporting the junior pen testers. Working within cyber security operations center, you may well be what a manager looking after it. You might be at tier 3 or level 3 in terms of being an analyst. So again, you support those below you, but you're also having that bigger picture, being part of an incident response team, looking at policies and procedures. There's quite a lot goes into this area, and that is why all that base foundation that you've already got builds up and moves you through your career without a doubt. So in terms of me then, next 3 slides are sort of pertinent to, if you like, my background, and also talking to you about specifically about how you'd move into a security operations center, which is the big part of the world I work with and within BT. So I started off in IT, and I did start off with quite simply delivering IT, basic IT skills, if you like, MS Word, Excel and Access, on 2 courses called IBT2 and the CLATE. So just basic IT skills for people to come in and learn. I was doing that within a sort of a college environment. And I got into that after basically selling cars of all things. It was sort of dropped into it. Quickly found that I enjoyed the teaching and the learning and the delivery, and was able to apply for and got offered the position of a learning director, which is basically a sort of a teacher manager quality role almost. Quite a leap. But again, they were looking for people that were relatively new in, keen, and were bringing in new ideas to sort of, if you like, to the floor. I got involved with that. I spent over 14 years in that role, and it gave me a lot of, if you like, ability to not only grow as a teacher and learn my trade, but at the same time, one of the most priceless things of being a teacher is watching someone who's come in with either the skills that have not sort of fully formed at school, or maybe they have not done as well at school as they thought they would have done, and they've come into a college environment, and our job has been to basically turn them around, give them that the input they needed. And it wasn't just about the technology and learning the, if you like, the skills of the trade in terms of IT. It was also about those soft skills, you know, being able to present, being able to be a good time manager, learning how to become an independent learner and do things on their own without being spoon-fed. And there's nothing more great than seeing a student who you started with find it very, very difficult, and then 6 or 7 years later you hear from them and they've made it through university and now got a degree, or they've got a really, really good job. I've got a friend of 18 years who's very high up in a telecommunications company. I taught him, one of the first students I actually taught, and now he's very, very high up in a telecommunications company. So it's those success stories that really drove me across it. I taught across networking, programming, system support. Alongside that, I've always had a little bit of an interest within the police. unsure whether to join full-time as a police officer. So I actually decided to join as a volunteer police officer, which in the United Kingdom is called a special constable. So I used to volunteer with a police force and go and do regular hours, and that sort of grew. In 2013, I sort of got to the point within my role within a learning director, I wanted a career change. I wasn't sure where to go or what to do. So I ended up actually taking voluntary redundancy from the college and then joining as a police IT trainer. So again, brought me into a different world. And this is where I actually got into cybercrime in all honesty. And from cybercrime, it was cybersecurity. And I got fascinated by, you know, how people attack the networks and that bigger picture. I'd done a little bit of digital forensics at college towards my later years, but I'd never really thought or gone into cybersecurity much. And absolutely got fascinated in it. I got trained and was qualified, and I still am, to undertake open source investigations. I was delivering cybersecurity awareness training to detectives across all the East Midlands region of the United Kingdom, which is things like Lincolnshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, and Northamptonshire Police. And it was great talking to them and seeing the impact of cyber and crimes and how people were suffering from it, and it really built it out. I decided to move into being a police officer, but that was only a short period really, because I got into it at the time when there was lots of changes and I wanted to move to become a detective within cybercrime, but that was not going to happen. So I made the decision that if I can't move forward, I'm better off going back to what I know and then trying to move into where I want to be from that. So I joined another further education college, brilliant college. I had the opportunity to set up one of the very first cybersecurity further education courses in the United Kingdom. So again, that taught me a lot of the skills. It was built on the back that we already had a networking course, and I said, well, why don't we do cybersecurity and add some bits in? We looked at building in certifications into it as well, and very much building out this framework so that students could start learning cybersecurity. Biggest barrier, believe it or not, was actually students coming from schools with very, very poor IT skills. They could use phones really well, and they could use any mobile device, but when it came to using Windows and using word processors, things like that, I was quite amazed at how those skills had fallen away from my time of at one college to moving to another college. But very, very interesting. That really got me involved more within universities, capture the flag events and things like that. But I knew my heart really lay in sort of cybersecurity and delivering of cybersecurity certifications. So I was very, very lucky to land a role within a commercial organisation, and I was able to deliver certification across several of the vendors, including EC Council. Obviously, to take those certifications, I was probably taking a certification a month. So I was learning it, taking it, and then a month later actually delivering it. So it was quite a firefly of about 11 or 12 certifications taken within 12 months. But it was brilliant for my learning. I won't say it's the best way to do it, because I think I was learning so fast, it was sometimes I was struggling to assimilate it all. But obviously the background I had in teaching IT, that networking knowledge and everything else did come to the fore, and then nicely build it out. And then of course the law enforcement, the understanding of digital forensics and investigations, that came as well. So again, it was interesting how I was able to transfer skills that I had elsewhere into cybersecurity. And that's another key thing, is people forget about the number of transferable skills that you may already have, that actually you can bring into a cybersecurity role. With the cyber instructor, the biggest issue with it was the amount of time away from home. I could be away for 2 to 3 weeks a month from home. I had a family, and that really brought me around to, well, I love this job, and I did. However, the impact on family life was too great, so I joined BT. Initially, I was in the CSIRT training teams, they call it, the training team, which I still am a part of. But I found more and more I was starting to work with the platforms, which is what I was brought on to do, training different platforms like Splunk, QRadar, later on CrowdStrike, and then also supporting analysts with, if you like, their careers in terms of what skills they want. That's when the niche mapping came in, so that we could build in certifications to give all our analysts the chance to progress. Again, fantastic role, fantastic company to work for, so much going on, so much knowledge, and people have, if you like, have been there years or short term, and I just love it for the place where I can soak up and learn from others, because just as much as I learn from teaching and of learning from certifications, I've also learned an awful lot, not just from those I've taught, but those I've worked with. And again, that's a big part about cybersecurity. It's always having that open mind and the ability to listen to others, take information and learn, because you never stop learning. Every day is a learning day. And it's always what's driven me forward, the thirst to learn and continue. So in terms of your journey then, we all do have a journey, and everyone has a different starting point. It might be that you've had an interest at school, you've started something as a hobby. It might even be that you've landed a role that you weren't quite sure of, but once you got into it, it's really something you want to get into and move forward with. And often this is where people have got interested in IT, you know, from building computers or other things, but there's so many other different ways people have moved into so many different careers, from things that started as a childhood interest or as a hobby or something they studied at school. There's also a lot of people that have decided to want a career change. For whatever reason, they wanted to move industries or change or do something very, very different. I worked with someone who was a fantastic IT teacher, but originally they were a builder. They'd spent many, many years as a builder and decided they wanted to do something different. So what they did was they came and got all their IT qualifications and built up those skills. They then got their teaching qualifications, and they're still teaching to this day. And that was a complete career change, and very, very happy. And the key other thing I always say, you are never too old to learn something new. It's just so important to never think, oh, I'm too old for this. No, you're not. Nobody's ever too old to learn. I think learning is something that is often underrated and often forgotten about, because we learn every day. We learn new things. You know, you might just look at the news, you might read something online, you might talk to somebody, but it's amazing what we learn. And that learning then, certainly if you've got a passion or an interest, can actually turn that into your next role, your next direction. But if you are going to have a career change, or even when you're at school, when you get to a certain level, be it get to the level where you might be looking to university for a degree, or you might be looking towards college, have a plan. Don't ever go into something blindly. If you want to do something, fantastic, but have a look at it, research it. What are the requirements? What sort of things you're going to do? Is there any certifications or qualifications that you need? What experience do you need? How am I going to get there? You know, I want this job, but to get to that job, I might need to do other jobs. How am I going to build my skills and knowledge? Because ultimately, when you get to that interview point, especially for technical roles, you are going to be asked to demonstrate those skills, or you might be asked questions on those skills. And that is where all that learning and all that research comes together. And it very much is about that initial journey. And we can start a journey, and when maybe that journey doesn't quite get us to where we want to do, and we meander. And I think a lot of people's careers have meandered one way and the other way. As I said, I started to move up, then I dropped back down, then I moved up again, because I wanted to change and I wanted to really follow what I was passionate in and loved the most. And to me, cybersecurity and teaching is something that will never leave me. I will always have a passion for it. And that's the key thing. If you don't enjoy doing something, look to change it. And of course, in my world, it's all about analysts, and I deal predominantly with global analysts because we're a sort of, if you like, a global company. So I deal with analysts in Australia, India, America, Germany, and Spain, and then we have got United, if you like, UK-based, 2 UK-based SOCs as well that I work with. Analyst is a lovely entry role into cybersecurity. Why? Because it gives you a chance to come and learn your trade. It gives you a chance to start really get an understanding about threats and the bigger picture of what's happening in there. And a junior analyst is not really expected to have that much in terms of technical skills. They're expected to have some basic knowledge, and I will always say that, you know, knowledge to a point is always going to be power, and the knowledge you have can always be built on. But it may mean that you come in and you've really got that, as I said, a strong platform to come in. You can demonstrate your skills and interview. And once you're in a role, and it doesn't matter what business or area you're in, there's not many businesses out there that won't want to have some form of development or want to try and help you develop. And that's where you can, again, look to build your skills out as well. But the key thing is team working, being able to analyze and investigate threats within an organization, or as part of a managed service. So BT is both. It does managed services as well as internal. But that's a big part of being an analyst. It's looking at stuff and saying, that doesn't look right. If it doesn't look right, why does it not look right? I'm going to have to investigate. I'm going to have to dig into it. So it is a fascinating role. And you can deal with the daily intelligence that comes in. Things keep happening. We see in the media with the different events that have happened, the Twitter one that's only obviously happened very recently, and all the other kinds of breaches and attacks that we've seen in the media over the past few months and past few years, and they have been on the rise from COVID without a doubt. I always say that criminals, they'll look at one method, and then if they can't get away, if you can't commit crime one way, they'll look at another. And that's certainly what's happened within COVID. They've just changed their methods and how to, if you like, breach. But tier one is what you're looking for. You might see it as tier one, or you might see it as level one. Again, it's a term that's used across the world, either level one or tier one, depends where you are. But the tier one roles is what you should be looking for if you're trying to move into cybersecurity, and a great way in, as I said. And you don't have to stay an analyst. There's so many different routes off. If you really enjoy it and you like that world of investigations and digging into it, you can then start to move up the tiers. When as you move up the tiers, you get to conduct more things. So a basic tier one role will just deal with maybe basic phishing attacks or very, very simple attacks that don't really take much looking into. It just, they need to be looked into, confirm that it either is a breach or an attack, or what we call a false positive, where we've had an alert from a system, but it's not actually an attack, it's just a system that's given us as alert. It might be that it's got a fault with it. It might be that it's just the way it operates. And that's very much a tier one role there, sort of that initial triage. You move to two, and you start to get a little bit more involved in what I call threat hunting, using a potentially different programming language like SQL, KQL, and other different languages to sort of start literally, if you like, searching for indicators of compromise, searching for where there might have been incidents. You might be part of the incident response team as well that has to obviously respond to an event. That often comes into tier two. Reverse engineering. You've found some malware, you want to try and look at it and get some more information about it, where it came from, how it did. Open source, which I've spoken about, again, looking for information. And very much become a master of the various platforms that are used. The most common one is probably Splunk and QRadar. We've got Azure Sentinel, a new one from Microsoft, relatively new in terms it's been 12 months and still very much being built out. There's the Elastic Stack, and then there's also ticketing systems where you record the information, such as Jira and Resilient, but there's absolutely loads out there. Alien Vault, I mean, you can keep going on forever and a day with the different platforms that are used, and that's also part of it. You learn a platform, you learn a system, you learn how to record, you learn how to manage your incidents, and I think it gives you a really, really good foundation into cybersecurity. But it's back to what I keep saying. You really, even for a sort of tier one role, that basic networking understanding and that basic networking skill base is going to come in, because if you don't know what an IP address is, the series of numbers that are used on computer systems, or it can be numbers and letters depending on the versions, without trying to get too technical, because that's what this presentation is not about. It's very much about that sort of pathway that you learn, but networking will equip you with those skills, and there's various different pathways out there, courses you can take, certifications you can take that very much will help you on that way and build up that information. And then on top of that, as I said, there's the platforms, and there's that offensive security knowledge that will move you forward as well, and learning about the different threats that are out there, the different ways that systems can be attacked, and how we mitigate them. In other words, how do we stop them in the first place? Because if an attack's happened, what we're going to do about it, how we're going to stop it happening again. So what does an analyst do then? Well, an analyst is basically often their day, if they come in and it's sort of a 9 to 5 SOC, they'll probably come in and just review everything. If it's a 24/7 SOC, it may well have then some form of handover. So anything that's been of note overnight or during the day will then be handed on to the next shift. That's quite an important part of it. And again, the intelligence and having that bigger overview of what's going on in the world is a really important part of an analyst, because again, how can you understand attacks and things like that if you haven't got the intelligence being fed in, but you haven't got that bigger picture and understanding? And again, higher tiers, they may also have incidents been handed to them by the tier ones. They might then have to look at them and decide what to next do with them, putting the appropriate resources on them, how they're going to be handled. But as I keep saying, reviewing of intelligence so you have that bigger picture is really, really important. Any incidents that have occurred may well be allocated, and this is for all tiers. So again, that's part of the workload. You've got incidents you need to look at, investigate and analyze, and basically put a report together. You might be using some different systems out there. There's the MITRE attack framework. brilliant. It's open source and it's becoming more and more adopted, and it really gives you an idea of different attack vectors, the different types of people out there, if you like, attacking systems. So very, very much MITRE ATT&CK framework is something big in the analyst world, and I think across cybersecurity it's gained an awful lot of traction, and certainly something I've been utilised more and more over the last few years and tried to embed into training and delivery. Most important part of an analyst, though, is what you record, what you write. There's a 6-month rule, and again, the 6-month rule actually is the same thing we use in the police as it is in the analyst, and it's all to do with the fact that if I write something down and I come back to it in 6 months' time, do I know what I wrote? Would I understand what I wrote? If I gave it to someone else, would they know what I wrote? Could they understand it? Would they look at it and go, yes, I know exactly what happened? If the answer to that is no, then basically it's insufficient. And there has been cases, and there was, I had a colleague who told me about somebody they used to work with, and he was actually called Dot Guy. Why was he called Dot Guy? Because that's how he'd fill in all his boxes. Because he had to put something in, he wouldn't fill them in with words, he'd literally put a dot in and move on, and put a dot in and move on. Of course, when an incident happened, that's completely useless because nobody can find out what he's did and why he's done it, or trace it back, or join them together for a bigger intelligence picture. Because in the end, you're defending your business, or you're defending a customer's business. So you have great responsibilities there. And again, all this information you put in that ticket and how you record it, and what analysis you've undertaken, and also the mitigation, what have you done about it, how have you resolved it, is so important, because again, if it occurs again and again and again, it's something that we can look at from a bigger picture. It might time with indicates a compromise from other businesses in similar industries or within that country. So very, very interesting part. So tips on learning then. As I said, you know, the thing about cybersecurity is you have to learn, and you have to be open to learning without a doubt. Because to get these skills, some people have natural skills or just pick it up, but the vast majority need to have some form of structure in terms of learning and how they're going to learn it and pick it up, whether it be education or whether it be a certification, whether it be some online, reading a book. It doesn't matter, it's all about the learning. But I always say never take or choose a course purely for the badge. Just because the badge is, you know, seen as the best thing since sliced bread, or any other vast reasons, that isn't what the important part about learning is about, and teaching, if you like. It's all about what you are going to get. What are you going to learn, and what the skills are you going to gain, and do they fit in with your plans? Do they fit in what you need to move to your next role? And it's not just cybersecurity, this is across the board, because the most important thing is always about the knowledge and the ability to acquire important information and be able to move forward with that. It's so much more important than the certificate of attendance or even the badge. So you always choose your learning on what fits your needs, fits the needs of where you want to be, and fits the needs of any roles that you're looking to move towards. Because learning should be fun, and it should be productive. You should enjoy it. You should be able to, you know, really get involved with it. And again, we all have different ways of learning. Some people do prefer to just sit and learn through a book. Some people like to watch videos. Some people prefer to be in a classroom. Some people are happy to just have online learning. Some people like mentoring. And again, that's all part of what I say as well. It's all about finding your way of learning and the way you enjoy to learn. And it doesn't have to be rushed. You don't have to literally think, oh, I've got to do this and this and this in this length of time. It doesn't matter. It's all about having a plan and saying where I want to go, and having some form of timeline, because if you have no timeline, it would just drifts. It is important to have goals, but again, there need to be realistic goals, and goals that you feel you can work within. But don't ever put too much pressure on yourself either, because that's when the learning just stops happening, because you're putting so much pressure on it, it actually ends up doing the reverse. Make use of hands-on practical resources. I'm a big believer on that. There's many different out there. Hack the Box or Try Hack Me, just to name two. But there's loads of other resources out there that allow you to have sort of more practical hands-on within cybersecurity, because again, I've always said computing is learnt by doing as well as just learning. So if you have a go, have a play, and learn things by doing, you'll also find that your attainment will certainly be much quicker. And of course, make use of people around there. Ask questions of your peers, ask questions of those who've been in roles longer than you, ask questions online, make use of places like LinkedIn, but always keep that thirst to learn ever present. especially when you're applying for jobs, because again, if you show that you want to progress and you've got that thirst to learn and move forward, that is going to put you in a really good standing with that person interviewing. They're going to go, wow, this is a person that really wants to move, and I like their thirst to move forward, their thirst to learn. So secure the role. So you've done all the hard work and study, you've created a CV to get past the good old ATS, application tracking service, you know, with all the keywords that you have to put in there. And keywords are important, and that's why you should always look at job descriptions and make sure your CV matches the keywords in that job description, because more and more automated systems are used to fish out CVs. So that's another top tip. Make sure you tailor the CV for the roles or even the role you're applying for, and that the keywords from the job specification are in your CV where necessary, so that you can showcase your skills and abilities. And if there's certifications or qualifications in there, they're in there as well. So, and also, which is often forget, a good covering letter that tells them why they should pick you over everybody else. What's good about you? What can you do? And you can build in transferable skills, experiences, all sorts of things in. It doesn't just have to be about cybersecurity, because like I keep saying, so many skills are transferable. And it often gets forgotten about that people have been doing one role, but actually that role has an awful lot of skills that can be transferred to this role. And the other thing is making sure that if you're going for a technical role and you've done research on the business itself, done research on what they do, make sure you're prepared for technical questions so that you can showcase your strengths. If you don't know something, never sit there trying to make it up. Just say, I actually don't know that. My opinion or my belief on it is this, or just say, I really don't know. However, I do know this. Work towards your strengths and showcase your strengths, because these are all going to show your integrity. They're going to show what you've learned. They're going to show your knowledge, and they're going to show your desire to progress. Stay hungry. When you have a passion and desire, it shines through. I've always said enthusiasm is infectious. Your enthusiasm does rub on off of the people, and it will rub off in an interview process as well. Employers love a can-do attitude. You'll just go on there and get it done. You know, you won't always wait to be asked. You'll get it done. At the same time, you'll say, oh, can I do that? You'll see something needs doing and just say to your manager, I'd like to have a go at that. And again, it's a big part of it. It's a big part of, you know, showing that you're a person that wants to work as a team. You want to get stuck in. You want to be part of that organization. You want to help drive that organization forward. Make sure you have a goal and work towards it. I keep talking about goals, but it is important. As I said, the path is not always straight. You will hit some bumps along the road for all different reasons, whether because we know life can sometimes get in the way, but other things can get in the way. Making sure you're constantly learning new skills and moving it forward, learning the skills that are applicable to you and your job or your career that you want to, but sometimes careers outside can also help, because again, it's back to these skills that we can transfer across. Cybersecurity does require technical skills without a doubt, but I've always said there's something that everybody can learn. As long as you start at the right level and you've got the right materials or the right course, certification, or people to teach you, you can learn it. Some elements you'll find easy, some you will find more complex, because again, it's such a big area that some elements people find easy, some people find really difficult. But most importantly, learn some more, and then just continue to learn, because never stop learning. Never think that you've reached a peak, because as soon as you reach a peak, I can guarantee you there's always something more to learn. There's always something new to learn and move on to. I hope you've enjoyed the sort of chat about careers and very much about how to move into the analyst role. As I said, I've a passion for cybersecurity. It's a great industry, some fantastic people working in it, some amazing job opportunities out there. But just remember, it's all about you having a plan and having goals to work towards. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this short talk.